Huge
Hello.
congratulations yet again.
Thank you.
All right, so let's talk about your history with Pixar a little bit. Can you
Sure.
name something about your approach to scoring a Pixar movie that has stayed consistent from film to film? But then what's something about Lightyear that posed a unique one of a kind challenge for you?
Well, I mean, the process is always the same, whether it's live action or animation, and it's about understanding the characters and understanding the story and understanding what these people are going through. It's a lot of people think, oh, it's animated, so then you must do a particular thing because it's animated. And the truth is, I don't do anything different on a Pixar movie than I would do on a Mission Impossible movie or a Star Trek movie or a thing. It's all about embracing these characters, understanding who they are and why they do what they do, and what are the trials and tribulations, and what are the struggles and the sadness that they're going through at the time. It's like really embracing that, because I think that's the only way to understand them as humans. The only way to connect to somebody is to understand them and put yourself in their world, in their place. So that's always the first thing. And then the unique challenge on this particular one, which was different than any of the other Pixars I had to do, was the way we recorded it. It was done during the pandemic. We weren't allowed to be together. Everything had to be done over Zoom. I was recording musicians in a studio. The musicians couldn't even be together. Normally, all the players would be together, close to each other. So the way we had to do this was separate all the sections. So you would have the brass section, who again normally would be next to each other, spread out 6 to 10 feet apart, plastic sheets between them. They couldn't hear each other properly. We had to find new ways to mic the room to get the sound we wanted, because it was for years you've only done it one way, and that is to have everyone together, have all the things happening at once. And then suddenly we were faced with this process of, wait, you cannot do that. You have to do it differently. How are you going to do it and still get the same result? And that was a massive challenge. But I have a great team of people, and Warren Brown, who was the engineer on this, he killed it. And we spent a lot of time in the mix, really tweaking and figuring out, how do we get this to sound like it the way we used to, so that was an enormous challenge, I think, for everybody. But we got through it, and it worked out. We learned a lot in the process too. So.
Well, that was going to be my next question, because as someone who's always desperately reaching for silver linings in challenging situations, is there anything about kind of turning the process on its head in that respect that, made you find like a corner of this process or a certain technique that you never would have realized was usable before, that now you could take on to future films, even without COVID restrictions?
Yeah, I think so. I think there was a lot in terms of understanding just technically space and sound and how it projects and how it works and how you can then do that. But more importantly, I think it was one of those things that in the beginning, you're like, oh, how is this ever going to work? It's not going to work. The real lesson is it can work. You just have to make it work, and when an obstacle is in front of you, you just have to embrace the obstacle and make it put a part of your team and make it work. And I think that, in terms of what you can learn from what we've all been through in the last couple of years is, how did we adapt, and did you willingly adapt, or did you begrudgingly adapt? And if you willingly adapt and you ran forward straight into it, I felt like you learned something about yourself. And I think that was something for all of us that we, it was, and we probably won't have the full understanding of it for years to come, but, yeah, it was an interesting way to go about things.
I think about that quite often. All right. So one thing about this movie that I'm totally obsessed with is the idea of it being a movie within a movie, because, essentially what Lightyear is to Andy, that's what Star Wars and the MCU movies are to us. So considering you've actually scored so many of those movies, is there anything from those scores that you found influencing what you were doing on Lightyear so it had the same effect on Andy?
Oh yeah, it was a complete love letter to all the movies I grew up with watching. Absolutely. So the music you hear in Lightyear is all taken from the years of everything that I've listened to and watched over the many years of consuming this sort of entertainment, which I love so much. It's absolutely all related to that, but tied up in a nice new bow to put out into the world. So. There's a laundry list of movies I could go through that are a part, that are all at the heart and soul of Lightyear. and I think, and everyone on the team felt the same way about diving into it that way. And it certainly started with Angus, who is also a massive fan of all of this stuff. And being such friends with Angus over the years, I met him before The Incredibles, actually worked on one man band together. And since then, we've had so many geeky conversations about every movie you can imagine. And this was just a giant extension of that. So
I'll wrap up with this one. It's a bit of a broader question, but obviously you've worked on some of the biggest film franchises out there. You've won an Oscar, you've won an Emmy, and then some. But do you have a score that you're just especially proud of that was maybe for a movie that flew kind of under the radar that you wish more people out there were aware of?
There's a couple of them. And it's not just the music that I'm proud of. It's the movie itself, the movies, like I always feel like John Carter got a bad rap. I feel like Speed Racer got a bad rap. And those are two movies I absolutely love. And I feel like, and I know that they have their fan base, they have their ardent supporters, which I'm very, very happy about. But sometimes, you don't work any less on a movie, work any less hard on a movie. Everything you do is really hard, and you're always trying to make the best thing you can. So when it doesn't quite hit the mark the way you're hoping, or when it's not received the way you are, you're always thinking about, God, so many people worked so hard on this thing. But the silver lining is all those people that are out there in the world, and through Twitter and the internet now, you know them, that it was embraced in a certain way. And over time, things get looked at differently. So those are probably two that come to my head, I think.
Doesn't really fall into that category, but Inside Out isn't just my favorite Pixar score. It's one of my favorite scores of all time.
Oh, thank you.
Obsessed with that one. I still listen to it over and over.
Thank you so much. I loved working on that film. Pete Docter's the best.
Well, seriously, one of the best of the best. This one is excellent as well. Huge congratulations on this and everything you've accomplished. Hope we get to talk again soon.
Thank you so much.